The Derveni Papyrus is an ancient Greek papyrus roll found in 1962, attributed to the Thracian bard Orpheus himself. It's a theogony that lines up very well with the Sancho and the Eighth in Genesis story that I did a video on a few months ago. According to the UNESCO Memory of the World Register, this papyrus is the oldest known European book in the world and one of the oldest books in world history that still survives. Here is what it says. Irenaeus, Irenaeus, they honor the souls, drink offerings, bring honors, offer to each of them some sort of bird, harmonized to music. Irenaeus, but a daemon comes into existence for each one. Persons who are wiped out, but those below are called daemons, and do not have of the gods, but are called serpents. They are like wicked men who are punished with death, and they are responsible for such persons as an initiate. He who changes established penalties, give rather than causes harm, did not let the world accept vicissitudes of destiny. Is not the world ordered as a result of these? Likewise, Heraclitus, deeming the shared sensations important, overturns those that are individual. Speaking like an allegorist, he said, Helios, and according to his own nature, is the breadth the size of a human foot, and does not surpass its limits, for it surpasses its own breadth at all. The Irenaeus, the allies of justice, will discover it. Surpassing, they sacrifice of justice by the moon, and terrors ask an oracle. They ask an oracle. For them, we will enter the prophetic shrine to inquire with the regard to what is prophesied, whether it is permissible to believe in the terrors of Hades. Why do they disbelieve in them? Since they do not understand dream visions or any other occurrences, what sort of proofs would induce them to believe? For since they are overcome both by error and pleasure as well, they do not learn or believe. Disbelief and ignorance are the same thing. For if they do not learn or comprehend, it is impossible for them to believe even when they see dream visions. Disbelief appears. Prayers and sacrifices placate souls. An incantation by magoi can dislodge daemons that become a hindrance. Daemons that are a hindrance are vengeful souls. For this reason, the magoi perform the sacrifice as if they are paying a blood price. Onto offerings they make libations of water and milk, with both of which they also make drink offerings. They sacrifice cakes that are countless and many-humped, because the souls too are countless. Initiates make a first sacrifice to the Eumenides in the same way as magoi do. The Eumenides are souls. Hence, a person who intends to sacrifice to the gods first sacrifices a bird. They are souls. This, but as many souls they wear. I shall also prove that Orpheus composed a vision, a hymn, that says wholesome and permissible things, for he was speaking allegorically with his composition, and it was impossible for him to state the application of his words what are meant. His composition is a strange one, riddling for human beings, but Orpheus did not wish to state with it unbelievable riddles, but important things in the riddles. In fact, he is speaking allegorically from his very first word through his last, as he reveals even his well-known verse. For when he tells to them, shut the doors on the ears, he means that he is not making laws for most people, but he is only addressing the few who have ears to hear, those who are pure in hearing. But in the next verse, as he been revealed in the following verse, those who were born of Zeus, the almighty king, that the world is ruled, Orpheus reveals in the following verses, when Zeus took from his father the predicted rule and strength in his arms, and the illustrious daemon. It has not been noticed that these verses are in altered order. They, in fact, run as follows. When Zeus took strength from his father and the illustrious daemon, since they run this way, one must understand them not as Zeus takes his father's power, but as he takes strength from him, having it, contrary to predictions. For this too, necessity being considered and having learned. To be so, Orpheus made the rule belong to the strongest, as a son belongs to its father. But those who do not comprehend what is meant suppose that Zeus takes the strength and the daemon from his own father. So understanding that when fire has been mingled with other elements, it agitates the things that exist and stops them from coming together because of heat. Zeus alters it, and that it is unstable once altered, to stop the things that exist from calcining. Those elements that are ignited are dominated. Once they are dominated, they mingle with the other elements. But we understand that Orpheus put a riddle in the words he took in his arms, just as the other elements. The firmest elements are intended strongly. He stated that Zeus sees the daemon as if belonged to a strong one. The next verse is Night, Nyx, the gods' immortal nurse, who voices all things, said. Voicing all things means teaching all things. For a voice and utterance are the same thing. To voice means the same as to utter, and to utter means the same as to say. For it is impossible to say if one does not utter, and Orpheus deemed say and utter the same thing. Say and teach have the same sense, for it is impossible to teach without saying whatever is taught by means of words, and teaching is deemed to be a kind of saying. So teach was not distinguished from say, and say was not distinguished from utter, but utter, say, and teach have the same sense. Thus, there is nothing to stop voicing all things from meaning the same as teaching all things. When Orpheus terms Nyx, nurse, he is hinting that whatever elements the sun warms and dissolves, night cools and solidifies them. Whatever elements the sun warmed, of night, Orpheus, that says that night, or Nyx, prophesied from the Adaiton, because he makes the judgment that depth of Nyx is Adaiton, for it does not set Danaia like the light, but the light overtakes it as it stays the same point. Prophecy means the same as suffice. One must reflect that prophecy is used under the same conditions as suffice. For example, as they consider that this god prophesies, they go to ascertain what they should do. In the next verse, Orpheus says, she prophesied all that is permitted him to hear. In these words, Orpheus revealed that, beside the things that exist, able to, and to take his rule away, the next verse runs as follows. So that on snowy Olympus, lovely seat Zeus, ruler of all. Olympus is the same thing as time, but those who suppose that Olympus is the same thing as sky or Aranos are quite mistaken, as they do not comprehend that it is impossible for sky to be longer rather than broader. But if someone termed time long, he would not be at all mistaken. Wherever Orpheus intended to say that sky, he added the epithet broad. But wherever he meant time, he did the opposite, since he never added the epithet broad, but long. By saying that Olympus is snowy, he used the meaning snow-covered, white, bright, gray. When Zeus had heard his father's prophecies, the verse, for neither did he hear them, but it has been revealed that he had already heard them, nor does Nyx order him, but Orpheus reveals this by saying as follows. He ingested the phallus that first procreated the ether. Since Orpheus is speaking about reality in a riddling way throughout his composition, one must discuss it verse by verse. He used this verse likening the sun to a genital organ because he saw that people think procreation resides in genital organs and does not arise without the genital organs. For without Helios, it is impossible for things to exist, to have become to be as they are. And when the things that exist had come about, the sun, everything, nor for the things that exist to surround. Helios procreated the brightest, whitest element, once it had been separated from itself. So Orpheus states that this Kronos was born to Gaia by Helios, because he caused the elements to be thrust against each other on account of the sun. This is why Orpheus says, he who did a great deed. The next verse, Aranos, son of Nyx, he who was the first king. After he was named Mind, Nous, Kronos became, he thrust the elements against one another. Orpheus states that he did a great deed. To Aranos, he states that sky and his kingship taken away. Orpheus named him Kronos after his action, and named the other elements in accord to the same principle for all the things that exist, as he sees with nature. Orpheus states that Aranos had his kingship taken away when the things that exist were thrust together. When mind caused them to thrust and against each other, and made the things that exist, once they had been separated, stand apart from each other. For as Helios was being separated and cut off in the middle, mind fixed both elements above the sun and those below, and holds them fast. Next verse, from him in turn came Kronos, and next was crafty Zeus. Orpheus means that his rule has existed since he became king, but his rule is explained because by thrusting the things that exist against each other, he caused them to stand apart and created the present transmutation, not creating different things from different ones, but different ones from the same. The phrase, and next was crafty Zeus, reveals that he is not a different god, but the same one. Orpheus states the following: seizing kingly honor, he swallowed Metis too. It has been revealed that Orpheus stated that the sun is a genital organ, he says that the things which now arise from existent things, of the phallus of the firstborn king, and on him grew all the immortals, blessed gods and goddesses, the rivers, lovely springs, and all the rest. All that had been born, he himself alone became. In these words he hints that the things which exist have always existed, and those which now arise from existent things. The phrase he himself alone became, by saying this, he reveals that mind itself, existing on its own, is equal to everything else, as if the rest were nothing. For it is impossible for these things that exist to exist without mind. Mind equal to everything, king of all. Next verse, Zeus was firstborn. Zeus of the shining bolt was last. This verse proves that Zeus existed before he was named. Then he was named. For air was pre-existent, and even before those things which now exist were put together, and he will always exist, for he did not come to be but existed. Why Zeus was called air has been revealed earlier in this treatise, but he was believed to have come to be because he was named Zeus. As if he had not existed before, Orpheus said that air would be last because he was named Zeus, and this will continue to be his name so long as things which now exist have been put together in the same element in which they were suspended when they were pre-existent. Orpheus is stating that things which exist became such as they are on account of air, and having come to be all in air. He only gives hints in these verses. Zeus is head. Zeus is center. All things come from Zeus. By saying head, he says in a riddling way that those things which exist have air as their head. His rule comes about to have been put together. The next verse, fate. In saying this, Orpheus meant that, and the elements that are borne downwards, which he meant in stating this, but that the earth and all the other elements are in the air, as he is breath. So Orpheus named this breath fate, but the rest of mankind say fate spun. For them, as the saying goes, what fate spun will be, speaking rightly, but not knowing what either fate or spun is. For Orpheus called wisdom fate. This appeared to him to be the most apt of the names that all mankind has given him. For before being called Zeus, fate, the wisdom of God forever and always, but being called fate was called Zeus. They suppose that he came to be, although he had existed even before, but was not yet named. This is why Orpheus says Zeus was firstborn, being first. Those people who do not grasp what is meant suppose that Zeus. Each individual thing has been called after the dominant element in it. All things were called Zeus by the same principle, for air dominates all things to extent that he wants. When people say fate spun, they mean that wisdom of Zeus sanctioned that what exists has come to be and will come to be, must have come to be, exist and cease to be. Orpheus likens him to a king, for this among the names that were current appeared to him to be apt when he says as follows: Zeus the king, Zeus ruler of all, he of the shining bolt. Orpheus said that he is king because although there are many rulerships, one rule dominates and brings everything about. For not one to bring about, ruler. The world is ruled. As for the initiates, I am less amazed at those persons who have performed the rites and been initiated in the cities do not comprehend them, for it is impossible to hear what is said and learn it simultaneously. But those who have been initiated by someone who makes a profession of the rites are worthy of amazement and pity. Amazement because although they suppose before they perform the rite, they will have gnosis. After they have performed it, they go away without gaining gnosis, and make no further inquiries, as if they knew something about what they saw, heard, or learned, and pity because it does not suffice them that they have wasted the fee that they paid beforehand, but they also go away bereft of their judgment too. Before performing the rites they expect to have gnosis, after they have performed them, they go away even of their expectation. To one who hears the verses, the story appears to say that Zeus had intercourse with his own daughter, with his mother, but with his sister, when he saw. The verse, when Zeus first mounted heavenly Aphrodite, and begat from her persuasion and harmony. When neither the hot had come together with the hot, nor the cold with the cold, by saying when Zeus mounted, Orpheus reveals that the elements divided into little bits, moved on and mounted into the air, and by mounting were put together with each other. They kept mounting until the point when each had come to its like. Heavenly Aphrodite, Zeus, Aphrodise, Mount, Persuasion, and Harmony are conventional names for the same god. A man uniting sexually with a woman is said to Aphrodise, as the saying goes, for when the things that now exist were united with the other, God was named Aphrodite. He was named Persuasion because the things that exist gave way to each other. To give way is the same as persuade. He was named Harmony because he fitted together hermos, many elements, to each of the things that exist, for they had existed even before, but they were named as coming to be after they had been separated. The fact of their separation reveals that governs that now. So Orpheus named everything likewise as best he was able to, since he understood that people do not have similar nature and do not all desire the same things. When they have the most power, they say whatever comes into their minds, whatever they may have to desire, not all the same things driven by greed, but on occasion by ignorance as well. Gaia, Mother, Rhea, Hera are the same. She was called Gaia or Earth by convention. Mother, because everything comes to be from her, Gai. And Gaia, in accord with individuals' dialect. She was called Demeter, like Ge Meter, a single name from both, for it was the same name. There is a statement in the hymns too, Demeter Rhea Ge Meter Hestia Deo, for she is called Deo because she was injured in sexual union. Orpheus will reveal this when, according to his verses, she comes to be. She was called Rhea because many animals of all sorts were born easily from her. Rhea means easily among the poets. She was called Hera. The next verse, he contrived the great strength of wide flowing ocean. This verse has been composed in a misleading way and is obscure to most people, but to those who comprehend it with ears to hear, it alright is obvious that ocean is air, and that air is Zeus, Hence, when Zeus did not contrive another Zeus, but he himself contrived great strength for himself. But those who do not comprehend it suppose that ocean is the river, because Orpheus added that the epithet wide-flowing. But Orpheus hints at his own judgment in everyday and colloquial words. For people say that those who have great power among mankind have wide influence. The next verse, he put in the might of silver-swirling Acolias. Orpheus gives water, generally, the name Acolias. The phrase put in the might means that Zeus' rule arises in each but wanted. The phrase equal-limbed moon, for the things are round and equal and measured from the middle, but it is impossible, for such things are not round to be equal-limbed. The following verse reveals it. Luna, or Selena, moon, who shows for many mortals across the endless earth. One might suppose that this verse was intended differently because if the moon surpasses its limits, the things that exist show more clearly than before it surpasses them. But Orpheus does not mean this when he states that it shows, for he had meant this, he would have not stated it. He shows for many, but for all, at once both, for those who farm the land and for sailors, showing when one must sail the season for the former. For had Selena not come into existence, people would not have found the number of either the seasons or the winds, and all other things. The element of which the sun consists are hot, very bright, and those of which the moon consists are whitest of all, and divided up in accord with the same principle, but are not hot. There are other elements too, now suspended in the air, far away from each other, but by day they are visible, as they are dominated by the sun, whereas by night they are visibly exist, but are dominated not by the moon, on account of their smallness. Each of them is suspended by necessity, so that they cannot join up with each other, for were it otherwise, all those elements that had the same power as from which the sun was put together would join up in a lump. Had not Theos desired the existence of those things that now exist, he would not have created the sun, but he created it, and it became of such a kind of dimension as explained at the start of my treatise. The verse after these are composed as an obstacle, since Orpheus does not want everyone to comprehend them. In the following passage, he only gives hints. But when the mind of aegis-bearing Zeus and all-contrived Zeus wished to unite with his highest mother in love, Orpheus says mother, because mind is the mother, and other elements, Hyas, because she is good. He reveals that Hyas signifies good in the following words too. Hermes, Maia's son, guide and giver of goods, Ion. It is clear in the following passage too, for double jars are placed on Zeus's floor of gifts of evil, and the other full goods, Ion. Those who do not understand the phrase metros heias suppose it means his own mother. But Orpheus wanted to present the god as wanting to unite with his own mother in love. He could have said his own Heo mother by changing some letters, for in this way it would become his own. Obvious that both good mother. And that is the end of this papyrus, this fascinating papyrus, which seems to me to be probably a precursor to Epicurean thought. Very scientific, very taking the allegories and making it into some sort of reality that exists in this world that we're in. And so you have this succession that we see from the Hesiod theogony or Sancho and the Athens text. You see that there, but it also is changed in a way where it's becoming sort of a scientific treatise, if you will. And the Orphics are very fascinating in this sense. You can see how this is the precursor in the mystery cult world, with the emphasis on getting initiated. The initiates have ears to hear, and they are the ones who are going to be reincarnated as transmigrated souls and will have the good destiny. And those who don't have ears to hear, those are the ones we need to pity. That is the Orphic cosmology. And so this papyri is so fascinating. It is the Orphic poems of the distinctive verses of the pre-Socratic philosophers. And like I said earlier, Anaxagoras is the one who's credited for this. And from the time of Philip of Macedon, right before Alexander the Great conquers the East. So this was being written when Persia was still ruling. That is pretty interesting. And with that being said, you have just attained true gnosis.